started?
Okay, still got a couple people up you're not supposed to have up.
Yeah, I'm gonna work through that.
Okay. All right, we're having a few technical problems, but we're going to start the meeting. So I'm going to call tonight's meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. And I'd like, first of all, to wish all the board members happy holidays, since we're not going to be able to get together, and this will be the last time we'll see each other until after the first of the year. We're continuing to have our meetings virtually via Zoom, and as a result, we have had to change our procedures. Thus, we're asking that we follow some basic parliamentary procedures. First, all speakers must be acknowledged by the chairperson prior to speaking. Board members can do this by physically raising their hand in their screen. For members of the public, we ask that you use the raise hand feature within the Zoom at the appropriate time. Please note that if you are accessing the meeting using your cell phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9 on your phone. Let me repeat that. If you're using your cell phone, raise your hand by dialing *9 on your phone. We want to keep our comments succinct and to the point for the benefit of a productive meeting. All voting will be done in the form of a roll call vote. When a member of the public is recognized, the member of the public will be unmuted and will be asked to state his or her name and address before speaking. I ask for your patience and cooperation as we handle tonight's business. We have a new board member, and waiting. There we go. Okay, board members. This is our new board member, Aaron Rodenhouse. Aaron, these are all the board members. The permanent.
Aaron.
Hi, it's good to see everyone.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here. All right. Pursuant to the power that I have, I'm going to turn this meeting over now to Vice Chairman Eric Morgenroth, and he will conduct the rest of the meeting.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals December meeting. There are three types of matters that we review during this session. There are dimensional variances, which include signage. We use use variances, which must show a hardship. And we also have appeals from decisions of city officials or boards. And the applicant must establish abuse of discretion. We have two appeals today. Both are dimensional, so we won't have any use or appeals from decisions. Our procedure is as follows. There's a presentation by the Community Development Department to the board. The board is able to ask questions. Then there is a presentation by the applicant. And then we get questions from the board to the applicants. The speaker states their name and address, and then we get, comments from the public. This is the public's opportunity to state their name and address, state whether or not they are in favor or not in favor of the appeal, and then the board can use that information to help make their final decision. We have a roll call, so let's call the roll of the board. Let's see, it looks like we have everyone here.
Yes.
You want to call? Go.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Please. Please say the city and state you're located in as I call your name as well. So Charles Lilly.
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Jason Canvasser.
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Kevin Hart.
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Richard Lilly.
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
John Miller.
Here also, Birmingham, Michigan.
Eric Morgenroth.
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Aaron Rodenhouse.
Well, she's not participating. She's not participating in the meeting. So.
Oh, okay. Francis Rodriguez.
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Jerry Attia.
Mr. And now Mr. Attia is no longer on the board.
Okay. Ron Reddy.
Thank you. We have two appeals tonight. I'll call the roll for the applicants. First, we have appeal number 20-46, Petitioner Conway. Do we have someone here for that appeal?
Yes, I am here. My name is Thomas Affelt with M1 DTW Architects.
Thank you. And then we also have one for 20-47 on Purdy, Timberland Homes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you, appreciate it. Board members, in front of you, you have last month's meeting notes. Do we have any comments, changes, or do we have a motion to approve? Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I have one small change, actually just one word, and it's on page 4, where it states, the paragraph starts out, Mr. Miller said, and in the second sentence, it states, he said that even though the coverage overage in this request is significant, the circumstances are so unique that a variance approval in this case could, and that could should be should not be seen as creating a precedent. So just a revision to that single word.
Very good. Any other comments or revisions to the meeting notes of December 8th? Excuse me, meeting notes of
November 10th.
November 10th, thank you. Seeing none? Oh,
Move to-
Mr. Canvasser.
I was just going to move to approve with that correction.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from November 10th as amended. And we have a second from Mr. Lilly, Chuck Lilly. Can we call the roll, please?
Jason Canvasser,
Yes.
Charles Lilly,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morgenroth,
Yes.
Francis Rodriguez,
Yes.
Kevin Hart,
Yes.
Richard Lilly.
Yes.
So the meeting notes of November 10th are approved as amended. Thank you. Do we have any other correspondence for the board from any of the petitioners that we have not seen?
There's not.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. So let's call our first appeal. We have appeal number 20-46 for 1880 Kenwood Court, and the city will present.
Okay, this is where we're having our technical problem. Mr. Zilke, we're having a hard time getting him up.
I see him, he's still on mute. I don't see him, there we go, he's off mute. But we have no video.
There we are.
Here we go. Hello, Jeff. Still can't hear you though.
Okay,
There
this
we
is
go.
Mike Morad, Assistant Building Official. I'm going to read the case description here and Jeff will
Okay.
do the screen work. Okay, appeal number 20-46, 1880 Kenwood. The owners of the property known as 1880 Kenwood request the following variances to construct a new home with an attached garage. Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.06.2 of the zoning ordinance requires that a minimum front yard setback be the average of the homes within 200 feet in each direction. The required front yard setback is 28.66 feet. The proposed is 25.0 feet. Therefore, a 3.66 foot variance is being requested. Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.75A1 of the zoning ordinance requires that a private attached single-family residential garages must be set back a minimum of 5.0 feet from the portion of the front facade on the first floor of the principal building that is furthest set back from the front property line. The proposed garage is 11.24 feet in front of the furthest facade. Therefore, a variance of 16.24 feet is being requested. The applicant is requesting variances to construct a new home with an attached garage. This is a rectangular shape on a cul-de-sac. You ready?
Are we able to demonstrate the exhibits? Oh, here we go. Still can't hear any dialogue.
Zoom file. Unshare it then. Okay. Chairman Lilly, we're going to resolve this by moving Jeff over to my computer. It'll just take us a minute and we will be moving forward.
Okay. This is the first for us, folks. Those who are joining us tonight.
Just a little technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you perfectly now. Thank you.
Perfect. I know Mike gave the presentation. I don't know if you want me to start over with it or you just want the presentation. I can share the screen and explain it as I share the screen.
Yes, if you could do that, that'd be great.
You see the plan?
Yes, we do.
Okay. The first variance A, is the setback from the front, going at 25 feet. You can kind of see the line where my cursor is at. That's where they're proposing to put the house at. And going the 200 feet each direction is the 28.66 feet. The line behind it, the long dash and the dash is the required. They're asking for the 3.66 foot variance, pulling the house a little forward, and variance 2 with the garage not being set 5 feet back from the portion of the front facade. The garage over here on the left, this little indent that's over here is the farthest portion back at 11.24 feet. The garage is in front of, so therefore the 0.24 variance if the garage is pushed back from this point over here. Any questions?
So, Mr. Zucchi, the relationship to that furthest point back relative to the odd shape of the lot and where the building envelope is further forward relative to that setback is irrelevant, right? It's really in relationship to the garage, not relationship to where the distance to the front setback, correct?
Correct, because it's 5 feet back from the portion of the front facade that's furthest back on
Right.
the front facade. With that being the indent being there, that's the farthest portion back. And therefore, that's where the variance is being asked for.
Very good. Board members, let me see if I can see everybody. Do we have questions from the board members? I see Mr. Lilly, Chuck Lilly.
Mr. Zucchi, this is new construction, correct?
Correct.
And if the garage was back where it's supposed to be, 5 feet from the furthest back of the facade, would they need any variances whatsoever?
Still the first one because they're pulling the house forward for the required front yard. But if the garage was pushed back, no, they wouldn't need that second variance.
But would they even need the first one? Because if the garage is moved back, that's only a portion of the garage that's coming into the 28 feet.
Oh, you know what? You're correct. Yeah, if that was pushed back, a little bit of the porch overhang is still hitting that front corner right where the garage that right in here. That little bit would still be there, so the whole house had to get pushed back a tad bit, and then yes, I could eliminate the variances.
All right, so I did some measuring and according to the scales, from the edge of the garage to the.
Mr. Lilly, we can't hear you.
All right, I'll put the thing in front. I did some measuring and based on the scale here, 1/8 of an inch is a foot. From the edge of the garage to the 30-foot rear lot line is 3 inches, so that would be 24 feet. So I assume they've got enough room that they could move the garage all the way back and comply with a 5-foot setback. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I also noticed the house to the west, 1886, has a side entrance garage, and the garage is actually in front of the house. When was that house built?
I don't have that information.
Does
The ordinance was changed.
Mr. Johnson know that information?
Yeah, he just told me it was before the ordinance was changed. That was before my time, and I
Okay.
did not look into that information before the meeting.
All right. So the ordinance we're dealing with now didn't apply to that house.
Correct.
Okay.
Chuck, that house was built about 18 to 20 years ago. Because we would walk our dogs up in that area when we lived on Pleasant Street.
I think it was about 24 years ago.
Any other questions from the board members for the city? Anybody see others?
Yes, Eric.
Mr.
Oh, I'm
Hart.
sorry, Mr.
Yes,
Hart.
Mr. Morgan, thank you. Yes, if just looking at the drawing on drawing AS100, if you were to cast the south edge line across from the garage over to where the dining room is, it's roughly 4 foot 6 inches back from the garage face. The south face of the garage is roughly 4 feet 6 inches back behind the dining room wall that's in compliance. I just wanted to confirm that if you were to where the Yeah, if you were just to go straight across from the garage south wall, straight across to the dining room, just like that. That's roughly 4'6" back from the south face of the dining room wall. Just wanted to kind of clarify that, Mike or Mr. Morad or Mr. Zilke.
Yeah, it's
3 or 4, it looks like.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to kind of clarify that. I just scaled it here. It's roughly, you know, say somewhere between 4 and 4'6".
Did you have a question with regard to that, Mr. Hart?
I just wanted to kind of confirm that I'm getting the right take on that.
And let me just make sure, Mr. Hart, Mr. Lilly, do you have a question relative to his question?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why he's worried about that wall. That's not the furthest wall back.
no, over here in this corner is the furthest
Right.
back here.
Okay, good. All right. Thanks.
That is a question.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that projection, however. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Zilke, do you know the distance? Because the furthest point back is fairly close to that kind of kitchen hallway that leads to the mudroom. Because I know we're talking about pushing the garage back, but also if we pulled that deepest offset, even with the nearest offset, is that about 2 foot difference, do you think? Do you know where I'm referring to?
I'm not sure where.
In other words, they have a front porch where they show the 2 chairs and a table in the middle. And if that one point wasn't the furthest point back, the next furthest would be that wall. Do you know the difference between those two?
From this portion to the porch wall right here?
I can't see what you're pointing at. You're not sharing anymore.
Oh, let me,
Yeah, I see him sharing.
Oh, I don't see it. Hold on, let me pull back. No, I don't see it.
from the porch where the chairs are at, and you're talking about the recess on the other side of the dining room?
Correct. What's the difference in those two?
It was
Just
about-
because
it
that
was
would be
around
the furthest
2
point if
foot.
the other one wasn't in the same position.
It was a couple feet back.
Couple feet. Because that would impact how much further they'd have to push back the garage if that were the furthest point. Because that indentation is really probably just there to make that dining room seem like more like a panoramic sunroom. So that would be another option, is to pull that forward so that the furthest point back is actually where the chairs are. But
Correct. That would be an option, but then the porch would still come into effect with the 5 feet back.
right. All right. Any other questions for the board members for the city? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Zilke. Whoop. Oh, Mr. Miller, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just, I'm looking at where the rear yard setback is. Given that, in terms of the zoning permitted envelope, it doesn't seem like there's anything that would, not allow the house to be pushed further back on the lot. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's room to push the house further back. The exact dimension, I don't know. But yeah, there's room to move that house back further.
Yes, that's what it appears. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions from the board members and not hearing any, thank you, Mr. Zilke. Who will be presenting for the applicant?
That would be me. That's Thomas Affelt. I'm with M1 DTW Architects in Detroit.
Your address, please.
My address is 4633 Kingswood Drive in Brighton, Michigan.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm here on behalf of our clients, the Conways. They actually live in the house just to the north of this property at 998 Brookwood. They've been there for almost 40 years. And I think as Jeff mentioned, we're requesting these 2-dimensional variances, the front yard setback and as well as the garage setback. And both of these variance requests are really related to how the site is positioned on the lot, and also just in terms of how it relates to the neighbors. I think the 2 unique conditions we're dealing with, one is the shape of the lot and how the cul-de-sac kind of affects the buildable volume. There's a kind of a semicircular void taken out of it, which really pushes the buildable volume to the north, and especially on that west side. I think also, as mentioned, the other kind of existing condition we're dealing with is the massing and the position of the garage to the adjacent neighbor at 1886. And both of these things, I think what we're trying to do is understand the intent of the zoning, in terms of the kind of continuity of the front yards, continuity of the rear yards, how we're affecting kind of lights and views from 1886. You know, that kind of semicircular void and pushing the buildable volume where it is really kind of pushing a fair amount of it almost in the backyard space along Kenwood Court. So, you know, I think there's the kind of the most important things for us. We're looking at continuity of front yards. We felt like there's actually, you know, the dimensional discrepancy right now between the front garage of 1886 and where our garage is currently placed is roughly 30 feet. So that would be kind of increasing potentially to a large degree if the house were pushed back. We actually understood the intent of the zoning code, the averaging of the front yards. That would be a condition that is actually the zoning code is trying to eliminate or reduce. And, you know, I think, let's see what else. I think there's a great amount of support, I think, in the neighborhood for this, for the house as positioned. You know, quite possibly from almost everyone within the kind of BZA mailing radius. And we feel like, you know, as if you kind of zoom in to the site alone, you're kind of missing the zoning continuity question a little bit. So it's kind of within those 2 really unique situations that we feel like this house is actually kind of meeting the underlying intent of the zoning ordinance. The other thing, maybe just to briefly touch on, this is a little bit maybe requires a different reading. I think in terms of the garage setback, a part of that section actually, when it talks about the principal building, it talks about the principal building facing the street. Because of this cutout in the cul-de-sac, we actually have a condition where the dining room is dimensionally the furthest from the property line that faces the street. Because of the way the property line kind of curves around to the, you know, to the southeast or southwest, depending on how you're looking at it. So I think, you know, in one way, I think there could be a reading that says the garage is actually in compliance. If you measure from the midpoint of those facades back to the property line. And essentially that's because we have a unique condition where there's actually, it's kind of a 5-sided lot. We have a neighbor to the north, a neighbor to the west, a neighbor to the east, a kind of neighboring property line to the south, and then the street elevation. And that portion of the house that's set back, and then also the portion of the house that is the there's a den and a primary bedroom suite. in a way doesn't really face the street. So I think, in terms of kind of the garage being set back, I think that could be looked at as actually in compliance. So I think, yeah, if you have any questions, and we'll be happy to try to answer them and take it from there.
Very good. I guess I have a few questions first.
Yeah.
It seems like some of the consideration was the rear yard and maximizing the use of the backyard. Is that some of the motivation to try and keep the house as front forward as possible?
Yeah, I think, certainly there was a desire to kind of keep a fair amount of backyard. And, the 25-foot setback is really, kind of determined by the ordinance, where it said if you have houses within 200 feet, you're kind of taking an average. Because we were on this cul-de-sac, because we're kind of forced north, it felt like, well, we would just accept that 25-foot setback, because the averages don't really make sense at that point. I think also we were looking at the continuity of the rear yard, especially the 1886 has a garage on their east facade, but they also have living space. They also have a patio. So pushing that house back, pushing the garage back, now we, would have really felt like we were putting a 3-car garage in their backyard a little bit. So it was really about the continuity of the front yards, continuity of the rear yards, and trying to be, neighborly in the siting of this house. And then on top of that, there was also this kind of dimensional discrepancy between 1886 garage and with a 25-foot setback, our garage, which is, kind of as designed, is already 30 feet. We'd kind of be increasing that even further. So it just felt like we were, because of these unique circumstances, we were basically like going against the zoning intent in a way.
So knowing, and I assume you knew that the adjacent home was non-conforming, do you have the ability to meet the current ordinances, notwithstanding your attempt to mitigate the non-conforming house next door?
You mean just could we push the house back, these 3.66 feet, and then push, we'd be very, very close to basically, I think, having that north end of the garage being in that rear setback, and I don't know. We have to look at that, but I think we wouldn't be able to do that without increasing the impervious area on the site by a fair amount, because now where the driveway is continuing back 15, 20, 25 feet. We'd also be kind of blocking views out from the neighbor's house. So we wouldn't be able to do that in a way, I think, that would be doing justice to the neighborhood.
Let me ask it a different question.
Yeah.
Is the building envelope large enough for you to build the home that the client wants, staying within the ordinances? Do we have a challenging building envelope in terms of square footage? You can just say
in terms of just area, I would say maybe not. But I think it's not a vacuum. So I don't know. I'm just thinking about the clients want this 3-car garage. It really the way we see it has to be on this side. Otherwise, you're kind of eliminating the front yard with a driveway to kind of take it out to the east of the site. So maybe yes and no. I
appreciate your perspective. Mr. Camisar.
Yeah, let me maybe ask your question a little bit differently, because I want to get maybe a different answer here.
Mm-hmm.
Putting aside what the clients want and the client's wish list, you would agree, though, that you could build a house on this blank slate that would be compliant and not require every variance. It may not check every single box that they want, but it's feasible here to build a house on this lot without variances, correct?
Yes, but not one that would not one that wouldn't offend some neighbors for sure. Just given the way that that cul-de-sac pushes up, I think.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Lilly, Chuck Lilly.
With regard to the garage,
Yes.
would you agree that you could push the garage back to meet the requirement for the setback and not exceed the 30-foot rear setback?
It would be very close, I think. You're saying if we push this garage back an additional like 16, 17 feet,
Right.
would that, I think it would be close. It'd be close to that rear setback line. Very close.
All right. Well, okay. You heard the math that I threw out. The other thing is you were mentioning about having to move the house back. It seems to me that if you move the garage back and so that part complied, you wouldn't have to move the house back. And if you were concerned about moving the garage so far back that you could move, I can't show you because you can't.
Yeah, right.
If you move this wall forward, then you wouldn't have to move the garage so far back.
The kind of hallway wall.
Yeah.
Is what you're looking. Potentially, yeah. I mean, again, I guess in our minds there is that question of, if this was like a purely rectangular lot, that that portion of the house, that hallway that kind of goes to the den on the far east, that is kind of technically, straightforward reading of this would say that is the furthest from the property line. But that doesn't face the street, and the ordinance kind of clarifies that. So when you measure those other the other facades in terms of the garage, the front porch, the powder room, and the dining room, the one that's furthest away from the property line, technically of that volume, is the dining room, and the garage is set back. I'll have to triple check this. I think it is set back 5 feet from the front of that dining room wall. So, and it's all these kind of dimensions become a little with the shape. I know there's only, we tried to do a little research. I think there's only like 3 or 4 cul-de-sacs in Birmingham. And one of them is more of like a turnaround, so you don't have these houses kind of trying to navigate this this radius. But yeah.
Mr. Lilly, are you? All right. Mr. Hart.
Yes, want to just get this really clear. If we were to take this house just as it's designed, and right now you're showing on your dimension from the back of the garage to the north property line, you're showing that at roughly 53 feet, 11 1/4, 54 feet. Is that correct?
I'd have to.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, I have your drawing right here. So literally we're talking about moving, if we were to take the house just as you designed it and slide it to the north 4 feet, your request for variance on, the A version of your variance would not be required at all. So in my mind, you're talking about a difference between 54 feet to the back property line versus 50 feet. And I don't think anybody on this call or anybody on this Zoom call could ascertain the difference between 54 feet and 50 feet unless there's, you're building a tennis court or you got a pool planned, or what. Can you tell me what the hardship is there? Because I don't really see it.
Well, I'd say, part of the existing conditions, or the way as we were kind of looking at it, is really this adjacent house, this 1886 Kenwood Court. And by pushing the house north, you know, we're essentially creating a dimension between their garage and our garage. Right now it's 31 feet, then it goes to 36 feet. But we would be doing that in a you know, under the guise of the zoning ordinance, which is actually trying to minimize that. They're actually, you know, this kind of 200-foot average is really about a continuity of yards, you know, so you don't have these houses that kind of step back too far or come forward. So I think, you know, in terms of feasibility, it's probably there. It feels like it's going against the intent of the zoning. And
Well, I think you did a really good job with the challenging, radius.
Thank you.
I think it's a very nice, but 4 feet, I'm just trying to get my mind around that, because if you're still, even from your west edge of your garage to the neighboring property, you're still over 51 feet, you know, there. And whether it's 4 feet further north or 4 feet further south, I don't know how anybody, you know, I'm struggling with that portion of the request, the variance request. I just need you to enlighten me as to why that's a hardship.
I guess there's maybe two things worth kind of touching on here. One would be, again, I think if the neighboring house at 1886, if that side was just a garage, I think I would say we would be much more comfortable doing that, because they have living space out there, because they have like a patio, a kind of raised kind of terrace. You know, that 4 feet is now really kind of creeping into their views, their sight lines. That's maybe one issue. I think the second issue is, you know, the 25 feet is not kind of, wasn't like pulled out of a hat or anything. It was really based on the ordinance number of 25 feet. And in a way, it was because, you know, to our east, we actually don't have a house. The way the lot is, you wouldn't kind of average that house. And to the west, because its relationship to the street is so different, I think, you know, you could make the argument that, you know, I think the zoning ordinance says if there aren't neighbors east or west within 200 feet, then you use this 25 foot. And I think that may have been how we were thinking about it, because
but you know, it might actually be less obtrusive for this to be 4 feet further north than if you're worried about the living space of our people in 1886. Because if you're further forward, you're going to be actually in more of their line of sight if you're looking directly east. So anyway,
okay.
Yeah, I see your point, but I'm just trying to understand the hardship argument.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Any other board members scrolling to see with any questions? So, you know, the litmus test for us is not the aesthetics and the amount of light that comes in and the, you know, beautiful way you want to consider the surroundings and the neighboring home, especially a neighboring home that's non-conforming, and maybe sometime now or maybe sometime in hundreds of years that home may decide to be rebuilt or built, and then it will need to meet the new zoning ordinances. So our criteria is there something unique about this lot, the shape of the building envelope itself, that prevents you from building a house of this caliber and this size and even this width, which is a super generous width for a home in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
And we need you to demonstrate for us where the hardship is, where is the practical difficulty. And I recognize the shape is unique. I'm not sure that the challenges you're having have anything to do with the shape. And, you know, the difference of 3 feet on the setback kind of are what they are, although that's not the largest hurdle, I think, for you to jump, is whether you push the house back 3.66 feet. And I think you've acknowledged, unless you want to say otherwise, that it probably is feasible to build a home like this within the building envelope, just not this exact house with this exact aesthetics. So seeing no other questions from the board, we appreciate your time. I'd like to open it up to the public. Does the public, anyone that doesn't specifically have a relationship to this particular owner and or architect, have any comments or questions about this particular case? I don't see any. Seeing none, we will close this to public comments. Board members, what's your thought?
Mr. Morgenroth, I see a hand up.
Oh, you do? I don't see it on my screen.
A Danielle Kalt, K-A-L-T.
Yes, let me find her. Can we unmute Danielle so she can give her name and address and comment?
Hello?
Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, guys. We can
Hi.
hear you fine. If you want to state your name or, and I guess just Danielle speaking, state your name, your address, and feel free to let us know your thoughts.
Sure. It's Danielle and Jeff Kalt, and we're at 1886 Kenwood Court. And first of all, our home was built in 1994, as was all of the homes. There's 5 homes, which basically are in the court, except for the new lot. The new lot is to the east of us, but otherwise surrounding the entire new home proposed, all those homes were built in 1994. So it's unlikely that if any of us are going to sell our homes, that ours would be a knockdown. Our garage was set whatever was the code in 1994. And I'm not sure if it kind of sounded like none of you have driven by our court to kind of visualize what the situation is. But it would not be a hardship for the house to be closer to the street. In fact, it would be better for us because our backyard right now is the Conways, the current homeowner who's building this house from Brookwood. It's their backyard currently. So we have, since 1994, that has basically been a backyard. It's somebody's backyard. So we have a pathway and a built-in bluestone and brick patio that our living space of our backyard faces northeast. So we look at that space, that pushing that 16 feet back, the only view we would have would be that garage. But pulling it forward, it still would not be as close to the street as, because of the court, still would not be as close to the street as our garage currently. And I really wish you would have been able to, you could visualize it and you could see the way the court is, to see how intrusive that 16 feet is going to be. We're basically going to have a garage in our backyard.
It will stand out like a sore thumb if you move it back. You'll basically have a house in the backyard of the existing houses, and we're the ones at 1886 that are the most impacted because it's right next door. Whatever the rule was or the ordinance back then, our garage juts forward south from the rest of our house. So our garage is actually closest to the street, but we are actually not on the part of the cul-de-sac that starts to curve. We're right at the end of the straight part of the street, just before, at the end of our driveway, or the start of our driveway is right where the curvature starts. So as proposed, their garage is basically symmetric where our garage is, and it will look like it was meant to be that way. The ordinance would force the garage to be in a completely different position than where our house is. And our house is actually very parallel to the other houses on the straight
The
part
older
of the
homes,
street.
the older homes.
Right.
So, and the house next door to the, that's really on the center of the curvature to the furthest east, which is the neighbor kind of to the southeast of the lot. I mean, they face a completely different direction. They face straight down the straight part of Kenwood Court.
So when you're heading down Kenwood Court and you are heading east, you have no visual of the new proposed house until you pass our driveway.
So Danielle, I don't mean to interrupt you, but because of Zoom, we have some limited time. I completely appreciate your perspective, and I recognize how, because of the shape of the cul-de-sac and how your house is set at a different position because you're not on the cul-de-sac, how this impacts you. And just so you know, the board members do receive this packet just about a week before the meeting. So most of us, or all of us, do drive by to see the property and see the impact. But we can't take into consideration not only your home and the position of other homes. We simply have ordinances, laws, and rules created by the city commission, and those provide us with setbacks, rules about where the front facade and the garage stand relative to positioning on the lots, and those decisions are made without our preview. We're only here to enforce them. And the criteria you give it is great criteria, just not criteria that we can use as a basis of decision making. We can only use the ordinance, and the ordinance says the garage, the design of the home must allow for that garage to be behind the furthest back front facade, which is an issue for this home, and the fact that it's 3.6 feet or whatever the exact dimension is too close to the front, which isn't going to impact you or anyone really, the difference of 3 or 4 feet. But those are the criteria we have. So then we have to look and say, is this home buildable if it were pushed back, or a completely different shape? I mean, it's a beautiful, custom, complex home, but if you count the number of corners on this floor plan, there's got to be more than a dozen corners. It's not a simple design. And the lack of simplicity creates some of these challenges with the facades. And we're only here to review the ordinance, see if whether or not the ordinance have been met, and then talk about, is there something unique? Because if we say, and I don't know what the decision of the board will be, but if we say, no big deal, it's affecting the neighbors, let's just approve it, then every single person will no longer be required to build the garage relative to the ordinance if we pretend as if it doesn't matter. So it's our job to defend the ordinance and allow the applicant to explain why they aren't able to meet the ordinance. And that's the criteria. So although I appreciate your perspective, it isn't one that we can consider in our decision. Do I hear any other questions from the public? Jason, do you see one?
No, but if we're going to close public comment, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, if I don't see any more, then let's close public comment and the board can decide how they want to proceed.
May I make a motion, Mr. Chair?
Please.
In regards to appeal number 20-46 for the property located at 1880 Kenwood Court, I would move to deny both variances. In so moving, I would first find that this is self-created. I also don't believe that there is a hardship at play here. And specifically, I've walked this area a ton. I walk this area almost every single day. I've walked down Kenwood Court probably 1,000 times. In fact, I looked at the neighboring house once upon a time on Brookwood that backed up to this lot. So I've seen this from a few different angles. But at the end of the day, it's a vacant lot. It's a blank piece of paper, so to speak, that we've heard from the applicant a compliant house can be built on. Maybe not the compliant house that the homeowners want, but a compliant house can be built on. I also want to add a couple other things because we heard a lot about intent, and I don't believe as a board it's our place to try to derive the intent of the drafters of the ordinance unless there's some kind of ambiguity. And I don't think we're dealing with that here. I think as a board, as a quasi-judicial board, we are required to look at the plain language of the ordinances and apply it as written. And so I think we have to stay away from trying to derive intent to get to a different result. I also would note that this is not a popularity contest. These are always viewed as unique circumstances that we have to look at the 4-factor test in relationship to the language of the ordinance. And finally, I think I just want to add that while there may not be a ton of cul-de-sacs in Birmingham, I don't believe that the fact that a property is on a cul-de-sac makes it somehow an irregular shaped lot. I think if we were to go down that road, then every single time we had a house on a cul-de-sac, we'd have to start with the presumption that it's an irregular shape. So again, I think this is self-created, and for those reasons, I would move to deny the variances.
Second.
Mr. Miller, I see John Miller as a second.
Second, yes. And also a comment.
Please.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tough one, but in response to the neighbor who was very sensitive and articulate about the design, there is nothing that requires the design of this new house to have a 3-car garage face their house. The garage could be located in the backyard. It could be located facing the street. It could be located on the south side of the site. So having the 3-car garage face their house is not a predeterminate factor. Also, the intent of the zoning is to push the garages behind the face of the house, and that's very important in the planning in Birmingham now and going ahead. And this plan not only takes the garage in front of the house, but it pushes it into the front setback. So that's an extremely difficult thing for us to approve from the get-go. It also is a very large lot. The front is curved, but there's plenty of room to design all the programmatical features of this house on that site. Maybe not in a long rectangular plan, but certainly within that, the parameters of the zoning envelope, there's plenty of room to contain all of those program elements. I think that for those reasons, I'm supporting the motion, and I believe that the presenter had certainly some reasons for doing what he did, the architect, and he seems like, again, a very good and creative type guy, and I'm sure there is another option here that would alleviate him from needing to have these zoning variances. And for that reason, I'm seconding the motion.
Thank you for your comprehensive second, because I think everything you said is accurate. So we have a motion to deny and a second. Any comments from our board members before we vote? Mr. Lilly, Chuck Lilly?
Yes. I'm going to vote to support the motion. There's been no showing that compliance with the ordinance is unduly burdensome. And I think if the garage were moved back, and I think there's enough room that it could be moved back to comply with the one ordinance, there wouldn't be any need for any variance. And there are some other things that could be done without even having to move the house back. They could move some of the walls forward so that it's more of a solid front wall. This is a case that it's new construction, but self-created, and it's basically at this point due to the location of the garage.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly.
I want to follow up one other thing too about Mr. Canvasser mentioned it somewhat, but, we get this on occasion where people sign, either they're in favor of the appeal or they're against the appeal. As Mr. Canvasser said, this is a popularity contest. We've had them where there's been pages in favor, and the petitioner hasn't shown a practical difficulty, so hasn't gotten, and we've had the opposite effect. In fact, recently Hillside, where everybody was opposed to it, but the petitioner showed practical difficulty and got what they were requesting. And I can think of one occasion where the person came in with like 5 pages of signatures, and when they started flipping through them, some of these people live 2 miles away. So you can't, the fact that you have all these signatures doesn't establish or a practical difficulty, nor is in opposition to prove that there is that there isn't a practical difficulty.
Thank you. Mr. Hart?
Yes, I'm going to support the motion as well. I think that this is a clean slate and there's plenty of room to do. This house could even flipping the plan would change a lot of the issues. And I just don't see I don't see any hardship that's been demonstrated. And again, I will support the motion as well.
So I too will support the motion. I do think it's a beautiful plan. I think it would fit beautifully in the area. Even the beautiful complexity of the plan, I say complexity just meaning that it's not a simple box. I love everything about the plan. It's really not about that. It's simply about, we have ordinances and we have a blank piece of paper that the architect can draw a house as beautiful and as complex as he'd like or she'd like. And as long as it fits within the envelope and the ordinances, we don't have to really make a judgment on it. But in this particular case, with a blank sheet of paper, we have to draw within those requirements. So please call the roll. The motion is to deny.
Jason Canvasser,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morganroth,
Yes.
Francis Rodriguez,
Yes.
Kevin Hart,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Richard, you're muted. Go ahead.
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
Charles Lilly.
Yes.
The appeal has been denied. Our next case is for 815 Purdy, appeal number 20-47, and the city will present.
Jeff Zilke here to present case 20-47, property known as 815 Purdy. Request the following variances to construct a second floor addition with a modification to the first floor, which is the existing garage of a non-conforming home.
Hey, Jeff, we don't see you, just so you know. Or I don't see you.
How
Oh, there
about
you go.
that? Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.75A1 of the zoning ordinance requires that a private attached single-family residential garages shall not occupy more than 50% of the linear building width of the principal residential building that faces the street. The existing and proposed garage is 69.5%. Therefore, a variance of 19.5% is being requested. Variance B, Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.75A1 of the zoning ordinance requires that a private attached single-family residential garage must be set back a minimum of 5 feet from the portion of the front facade on the first floor of the principal building that is furthest set back from the property line. The existing and proposed garage is 9.40 feet in front of the furthest facade. Therefore, a variance of 14.40 feet is being requested. Variance C, Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.75A2 of the zoning ordinance requires that garage doors on attached garages that are facing the street shall not exceed 9 feet in width. Where there's multiple doors, there must be a separation of a solid wall or jamb not less than 8 inches wide. The proposed is 18 feet. Therefore, a variance of 9 feet is being requested. And I'll share my screen here. Can y'all see my screen?
It's loading. Yep, we see it.
Now again.
Okay, so if you see my cursor, here's the existing garage, and then there's the porch and the existing front door area. The garage, the existing porch area is existing, non-conforming. The second floor addition, here's the existing house as it sits. The second floor addition, they're looking to bring it forward of the garage to kind of create the second floor addition, modifying the existing garage, which would be variance C. And with modifying the existing garage, therefore variance A and B kind of come into play. Those are existing non-conforming, and then changing the garage door widths. That's where variance C comes into play. Should you have any questions?
So Mr. Zilke, request A really is an existing non-conforming and they're not exacerbating the non-conformity, is that correct?
That is correct.
And for B, they are adding structure, but the structure again is not increasing the nonconformity because they're staying within the existing, let's call it footprint of the home. Is that correct?
That is correct, because they're just going on top of the second floor and modifying the garage with it being existing non-conforming. That's why they're here with those two variances tonight.
Does that second floor section line up with the front of the garage wall, or is it set behind it?
It's set back a little bit.
A little bit. And then do you know what the purpose of, or why they're going to this single door when the maximum door width is 9 feet? Why not 2 8s or 2 9s?
I know the existing doors are 8. Talking with the appellant, I know he can elaborate more on it. The width of the garage being 8 foot was a little bit hard to get in and out. It was explained that you can go 9 foot, and I know I'll let the appellant explain the rationale behind going to the 18-foot door.
All right, thank you. Board members, questions for Mr. Zilke? I see Mr. Lilly, Chuck Lilly.
Well, Mr. Canvasser had his hand up.
I can't see.
I'll let him go.
I can't see everything. Mr. Canvasser, you want to go first, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I just have a question about the drawings. If we were to approve these variances, do we have sufficient drawings to tie it to the plan? You know, I guess some of the especially the elevations, in my packet, they look like they were blown up and supposed to be on bigger paper than what I received. So I don't have the best plans, but I guess I just want to confirm with the city that if we were to approve these variances, we at least have sufficient drawings to tie it to the plans.
I think the layout and the shape of it, there's enough to tie to the plans, but yes, I'd ask for more details and get some more specifics with the sections and stuff for that, for sure.
Thank you.
So do we need additional documents before we should proceed with this? Or I guess I'm not really clear on this. If we approve it as is and tie it to the plans, is the city good to implement that approval?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we don't need additional drawings.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chuck Lilly.
Mr. Zilke, I'm assuming that this is one of the garage houses that the ordinance was passed to try to avoid in the future, basically what we were looking at in the previous appeal. Is that correct?
Correct, with the garage existing being in front of the farthest portion of the facade,
Right.
yes.
So as you indicated, A and B, no matter what they do, that they have to get a variance for the garage. C, though, this is be a further increase in the nonconformity of the house, right?
C would be, yes, correct.
Okay.
I have another question. Let me see the rest of the board members. Anybody else? Not seeing any. Mr. Zilke, I don't know if you know, but my understanding from some of the other cities is the purpose of requiring the maximum door to be 9 is more of trying to create a historic look, the old-fashioned kind of carriage doors and a desire to keep that continuity, and that these large oversized doors that the city doesn't want to see. Do you have any understanding of why the maximum width of garage doors are 9 feet?
It used to be 8 and they increased it to 9. I don't think there's really no rationale aesthetic wise, carriage door wise. I believe 8 is kind of tighter with the cars being larger. The mirrors, they increased it to 9 for a little bit more ease to get in and out of the garage.
Thank you. Not seeing any more questions or comments from the board for the city. I'll let the city stand and we will look for the applicant who's representing the applicant. Mark, is that you? We have to take you off mute. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Mark Rao. My address is 615 Freedom Lane up in Oxford. I'm with Timberland Homes and I'm representing client Allison Primo and Fred Simmons. So there's two parts to the variance. The first part is there's an existing space above the garage right now, which is like a home office. And they want to take that wall and move it 9 feet forward, so flush with the front face of the garage, to add another bedroom and then keep the existing home office. So they want to basically add another bedroom above the garage. I believe that's really for that space or for that property. That's really probably the only space they have to do an addition to add another bedroom. And plus they want to, they feel like the house looks like it sets behind the garage. So that looks like the garage is just in front of the house. So they want to bring that facade forward so it doesn't look like the garage is in front of the house. So they want to add curb appeal along with trying to add space and a bedroom. And then the second part to the variance is the garage door. Now they have two 8-foot doors, which to try to pull a car into an 8-foot door is pretty tough. Some cars won't even fit in an 8-foot door. Some of these larger vehicles won't even fit through an 8-foot door. We did look at doing two 9-foot doors. The problem is with the width of that garage, if you put two 9-foot doors, your center pillar would be so small, and then your outside edge, when you pull a car in, you'd be basically opening a door into a wall. So we basically couldn't even make two 9-foot doors work. So ultimately, that's why we're asking for to do the one door in the front. Now, and just to make note, the neighbor just to the north of them does have one solid 16-foot forward-facing door. So that, and so yeah, so if there's any questions, that's what we're looking for, the A and B of the variance.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Board members, Mr. Hart.
Yes, what is the width of the garage existing? I don't have any.
It's so exterior dimension is 21 feet. The interior dimension is 20 feet, wall to wall.
Okay, so if you put an 18-foot door in, you're literally going to be splitting. What kind of wing wall are you going to have on both
To
sides?
put an 18-foot door in, basically the exterior or the outside edges of the garage door will remain existing. We would just be taking out that center pillar.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mr. Lilly, Chuck Lilly.
Yes, the petitioner's representative mentioned the neighbor, or I think to the north, had a 18-foot door. I drove by there. I can't remember now. In fact, I drove by there just this afternoon for the second time, but I didn't look at the neighbor's house the second time. Is that a garage door house too?
Is that a
In
what?
other words, what we call the garage door house.
Yes.
Well, it is?
Yes, it's the same as the 815.
Okay. Do you know when that house was built?
I do not.
Okay. I got a question for Mr. Zilke, if I could.
Yes, sir.
When they were doing the garage door houses, I don't know if you know this, maybe Mr. Johnson would have to answer this. Could they have a single door, or did they have to have the double doors? All the ones I remember seeing had the double doors, but I don't think I've seen every one of them.
back then, there was no requirement to either having a double door or a single door back then. It was just preference at that point. And I'm not sure exactly when the single doors, the 8-foot came into play.
All right.
Any more questions, Mr. Lilly?
No.
All right, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, maybe this is for Mr. Zilke, actually. Just the width of that garage on the drawings, it scales 21'4" outside to outside. And I think there are dimensions. I don't think it's 20 feet across on the outside, from what I can see. I think it's 21'4", and that makes a difference in terms of being able to employ that center post. Can the city confirm that dimension one way or another?
I think you said 20 foot inside dimension.
It looks like it's 21'4". I mean,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah, on the survey, it's 21'4".
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Board members, any other questions from the board? I don't see everybody on my screen, so I just want to make sure. 1 second. Seeing none, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
For the public, do we have any comments, questions, support about this particular appeal? And board members, please help me if you see anybody raising their hand on the screen I don't see. Seeing none, we'll close the comments from the public. Board members, what's your fancy? Mr. Lilly, Chuck Lilly.
Chairman, with regard to appeal 20-47, I move to grant A and B only. Based on the information having been presented, be unduly burdensome to make the petitioner comply with the ordinance. This house is already non-conforming. To the extent that they're adding on a second story, they're not increasing the non-conformity other than in height. And it's not something that was self-created, and I would tie it to the plans as presented.
Second.
I saw Mr. Rodriguez's hand. So Mr. Rodriguez is second.
Second, yes.
Thank you, sir. Board members, comments about the motion to address only A and B in support of the appeal? Mr. Canvasser.
Just a clarifying question. Is the motion to approve A and B and to deny C, or is the motion only as it relates to A and B?
I just did deals with A and B.
Okay.
I haven't said anything about B yet, because
C, you mean?
You can sort of guess what I'm going to do, but I don't want to tie them all together because somebody may want to vote a certain way and they can't if we got it all combined.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page, that the motion is for
Right.
A and B only and it doesn't address C.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Seeing no other comments, we have a motion to approve A and B for appeal number 20-47. Please call the roll.
Charles Lilly,
Yes.
Francis Rodriguez,
Yes.
Jason Canvasser,
Yes.
Kevin Hart,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morgenroth.
Yes. So we have an approval for appeal number 20-47 for section A and B. Mr. Lilly, do you have a motion for C?
I do. Again, as appeal 20-47, I move to deny the appeal designated as C. In this case, I don't think there's been enough information shown to establish that it would be unduly burdensome to comply with the ordinance. And it would be increasing to grant the variance would be increasing in nonconformity. So I would, on that basis, I would move to deny the request under C.
We have a support, it looks like, from Kevin Hart.
Second.
Any questions, comments from the board? Mr. Miller?
Yeah, just to comment, I will support the motion also. And when I looked at the dimensions, if your outside dimension is 21'4", that would leave you, if you had two 9-foot doors, that would leave you with the required 8-inch separation in the middle and 1'4" on either side, which would be plenty of room to have the two 9-foot doors that are separated from one another as the zoning dictates. So, you know, I don't see any hardship there other than you would have to, you know, do more, perhaps more modification to the construction, but you're building on top of that garage anyway. And yeah, the first two items, A and B, tend to mitigate that garage being thrust so far forward, but C would actually kind of exasperate the situation. So that's why I'm in support.
I too will support the motion. We know that the ordinance can be met because the existing garage did have two 8-foot doors. And although maybe not desirable, we know that that's feasible. So to go outside the ordinance, clearly there is no difficulty, there is no hardship because two doors are feasible. So I will support the motion. Can we please call the roll to deny for case number 20-47, section C?
Charles Lilly,
Yes.
Kevin Hart,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morgenroth,
Yes.
Francis Rodriguez,
Yes.
Jason Canvaser.
Yes.
Congratulations, you have your A and B, and C has been denied. Mr. Johnson, do we have any other business for the board?
We do not.
Great. So closing these cases, the public, do we have any comments, questions for the board that are not specifically related to these two cases? If so, please raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. Seeing none and not hearing any of my fellow board members seeing any, just want to say happy holidays to everyone. Please be safe and look forward to seeing you in January. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Lilly, Chuck Lilly?
Move to adjourn.
And I see a second from Richard Lilly. Please call the roll.
Charles Lilly,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yep.
John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morgenroth,
Yes.
Francis Rodriguez,
Yes.
Jason Canvaser,
Yes.
Kevin Hart.
Yes.
We're out.
Happy holidays, everybody. Be safe and
Happy holiday.